Thank you very much. Are we okay with the sound? Check, check. Good, lovely. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to Alan, to Christine and the UXPA committee for having me today. My name is Nick Fine and I'm going to talk to you today about the research challenges of personalisation. I'm going to go through this really quickly. There's a lot of content here. So please grab me at the end if you have specific questions. The idea here is to point you in the right direction, to give you an overview. I can't go into the level of detail that I'd like to in 20 minutes. So let's just get straight into it. So first of all, why is personalization so important to UX? Let's just spend 3 to 5 minutes talking about personalization, getting everybody on the same page. So we all know that the universal user experience is going to die, and it's currently dying. Well, why? Because one size just does not fit all. So we also know that designing for the average user means designing for a suboptimal experience. And why? I'm not average. You're not average. Individually, no one is average. So tell me, why are we still designing for averages? Okay, averages is bad, really bad. So personalization allows us to create a more individual, a more personally relevant, contextually relevant experience. So briefly, personalized. It's tailored, it's personally relevant, it's informed, directly informed by the Internet of Things. And as that becomes bigger and more with macro, micro, nano devices, they all inform the profile of the personalization segment. It's much easier to optimize, and it's segment-based. And that's completely contrary to the average user experience, which is universal, it's broadly relevant at best. It's not relevant, the Internet of Things is not relevant at all. It's way harder to optimize, and you're effectively designing for the lowest common denominator. Well, we can do a lot better than that. Conversely, we know that designers are going to be asking us all kinds of really difficult questions. I'm talking really to the researchers in the room predominantly. They'll be asking questions like, how do I design for different personality traits? How do I design for different learning styles? So, for example, half of our users are visual learners, the other half are oral learners. How do I design to that on page? How do you design for different cognitive styles, self-esteem, or any other metric, any other differentiating behavior or factor? So let's talk about personalization by personality, which is my specialist subject. Now, I don't know if have we got audio through the speakers? Well, this probably won't work then. Hang on. Okay, we don't. This is Pulp Fiction. This is Jules talking about personality, and certain animals eat their own excrement, but dogs got personality, and personality goes a long way. And what we're saying is when you add personality, it changes things. And personality is so amazingly important moving forwards. When we're talking about artificial intelligence, live chats, autonomous agents, avatars, all of that all has a personality. And the personality that it exhibits completely moderates the transaction between the user and the system. Come on to that in a moment. So, personality. Personality constructs, models, there are loads of them. Most of you have probably heard of the Myers-Briggs type inventory, and you're probably all very proud of the fact you're an INFJ or something. It has absolutely zero validity, none, okay? In science, we don't use MBTI at all. It's popular science at best. I don't even want to use science, okay? So Ocean, or the Big Five, is a very robust, very valid model of personality, okay? It holds up around the world in different cultures, in different languages. It's incredibly robust, it's strong. So, what does Ocean mean? Ocean is an acronym that relates to, the O is for openness to new experience. And when you're talking about these sorts of things, creativity, emotion, unusual ideas, curiosity. Some of you be more open, some of you be more closed. Then there's conscientiousness, which is how dependable are you? How dutiful are you? Do you have try to achieve things? Obviously, the opposite is not conscientious, lazy, kind of not attention to detail. Extroverts, as you probably all well know, assertive, sociable, sensation-seeking, talkative, and introversion being the opposite of that, at the other end of the scale. Agreeableness, compassion, trusting, helpful, well-tempered, and finally neuroticism, so prone to psychological stress, unpleasant emotions, typically emotionally unstable. So this is the Ocean set, and when we talk about the Big Five, we're talking about those 5 factors. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about through the rest of this presentation. So let's talk about challenges, because we're talking about challenges of challenges today. So first of all, if you want to design for personality, how do you identify personality in your users? That's the fundamental question that you need to ask. So this challenge is, how do I work out O, C, E, A, and N? But how? How do you do that? So the first way, you can ask people. So I can say to you, excuse me, sir, what's your personality type? And you'll say, INFJ, and then it all falls down, okay? Massive issues with validity, okay? Self-reporting, as you well know, isn't as good as a behavioral measure. In fact, they're garbage. Not garbage, they're not as good as behavioral measures. So self-reporting, big issue with that. We can measure it, of course. We've got psychometrics. Why don't we measure them? Well, if you're designing an app, an experience of any kind, what you can't do is say, I've personalized this by your personality, but wait. Please fill in a 160 question psychometric inventory first. Number one, it takes way too much time. Number two, you're not going to get valid answers. They're just going to fill in anything to get it done, and so it breaks. So that's not a very practical way of designing for personality. Another big problem. So you can observe it. And this is where we're at. You can observe people's behavior to try to understand their personality. So that's meant to be me with more hair. If you ask that question, usually, 99.999% of the time, people say no. Because nobody wants to have what they recorded online recorded. And that brings us directly into privacy issues and the big whole kind of Cambridge Analytica Facebook scandal that went on. My work was with Willem Paul Brinkman and Iftikhar Khan. We'd spend a lot of time around 2004, 2008 trying to work out how to work out people's personality traits from the way they interacted with a computer. It seems the best way to try to do that, and it's really not that easy. So what we did was from 2004 to 2007, built a web radio application that featured psychometrics, so it could give you a psychometric test effectively and ask you to fill that in, and a set of skins. So I could reskin the user interface of this web radio and then start to work out how did people behave if I knew what their psychometrics were. Now, in 2005, when I actually did this, I got about 2,000 participants. Not bad in the bigger picture, but not great. I got to 40% predictive accuracy. Now, I'm the first guy in this field to do this, and that's actually pretty good. It's not very good in industrial terms, but in kind of academic terms, it's a really good first step to be able to guess at 40% accuracy from just people interacting with a keyboard and mouse. That's pretty cool, pretty sexy. I had consent, but I did have lower statistical power. If you care, what I was doing was correlating the interactive behaviors with the psychometric data that I'd collected. Okay, so things like the total clicks, the session time, station changes, volume changes, clicks per second, the interclick time, which is the time between clicks. And believe it or not, I found a significant difference between extroversion and interclick time. Kind of interesting stuff. So we get through that. Now, let's fast forward about 10 years. About a month or two ago, you kind of missed the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Okay? Dr. Alexander Kogan used the API to do some naughty things, really. Effectively, he was doing exactly the same work that I did. Okay? The difference is he used 87 million participants as opposed to my 2,000. Now, Dr. Kogan used news feeds and likes to observe behavior. And in so doing that, and from what you post into your news feed, you can work out where you stand on the ocean. Okay, brilliant stuff. But there was no consent. Big deal, massive ethical problem. You know all about that. I don't need to go into the details. But anyway, he got 90% predictive accuracy. So that, once you've got 87 million participants, you can pretty much do anything statistically. You've got all the power in the world. But where the good part of Kogan's work was he effectively extended my work and did it way better than I did. But once you've established someone's personality, if you know that somebody is particularly neurotic, for example, you can then target political messages to that person. It's like targeting a Daily Mail reader. They're going to go, ooh, and they're going to... It's very easy to trigger those guys, and that's exactly what they did to influence the election. So working out someone's personality is not a bad thing, but telling them scary stories is, okay? So, challenge number one, you have to be able to recognize personality traits. If we as a community want to design for personality, we have to be able to work out what people's personality are, okay? And so that comes with significant privacy issues. I would suggest that you don't try to develop your own models. It's really complicated stuff. You're unlikely going to have access to the participants to get the power you need. But what I've said here is I think maybe we'll see some kind of ocean API in the future. Okay, something where you'll have access to it that says, okay, this API will tell you what the breakdown is of them, and then you can then use that onwards to design. Okay, I'm going to bring you into the next challenge now because that's only half of the story here. I said two things at the bottom here. Maybe there's a more reliable form of self-reporting, or even cloud-based psychometrics. Now, my personal belief is that in time, you're going to have a personal user interface, or a PUI. You're going to have your personal user interface. It's going to be stored up in the cloud, and it doesn't matter where you are, using the microwave, in your car, on your mobile phone, at your desk computer, on a tablet, whatever you're using, you still get your interface, you know, lovely, okay, with all your links and all your bits, and it's all contextually relevant, it's all sat fab. So if I'm sitting in the car, or I'm using the microwave, it's my skin, effectively, okay? It could well be that if you sit the 160 question psychometric, or it's been computer learned, machine learned, that's stored up in the cloud too. So we just make reference to your psychometric data. Okay, but then that comes with privacy issues as well. So, how many for time people? I'll keep going. Right. Yeah, okay, great. So, challenge one was recognize personality traits, but challenge two, if you think challenge one was tough, challenge two is also tough. Challenge two is once I know you're an extrovert, what design elements can I manipulate on page that actually appeal to you, that actually hit you, that make you behave differently? Okay? Like, so if I know that extroverts prefer, you'd have to know that extroverts prefer red, and then you can use red more. It's a really blunt example, but you get the idea. So, challenge two, let's talk about linking personality trait to design elements. So how do you do that? There's so many different design elements that I picked three. Two are aesthetically based, so the color and the shape, and then I went with a semantic element too. Now I can bore you in too much detail, I'm not going to go into it now. I'm not going to go into it now. Okay. So how do you design for personality traits? So, big one here, the similarity attraction effect by Byrne, 1971. What that really says, and this is a very well-researched area, we tend to prefer people like ourselves, in a nutshell. Birds of a feather flock together, herding, evolutionary stuff. If I'm a zebra and I see you're a zebra and we both got stripes, you're probably not going to eat me or chase me or be a danger to me, right? And it's the same kind of thing. I mean, I'm always trying to trigger herd behavior in all my design. If you're not, you should be. It's an easy win. But what this means is so for example, this is about seeing yourself in an image. This is about identifying with people. So that's part one. And part two is the media equation by Clifford Reeves and Nass, a pair of Stanford researchers. They wrote a book called The Media Equation, and it is a summary of a ton of experiments they did to try to validate whether similarity attraction applies between humans and computers as well as just humans and humans. Yeah? Everyone with me? So we got the media equation. The media equation says that people treat computers in the same way they treat other humans. Okay? So i.e., computers are social actors. Okay? When you're dealing with your interaction, dealing with it as a system, as this cold, unfeeling thing is not necessarily the case. It's a social actor in the user journey, in the experience. Okay, so what does that actually mean for UX? So we know that people prefer people like themselves, and we also know that people treat computers like humans. So therefore, really, you've got to think, people prefer computers that are like themselves. When I say computer, you know what I mean, a digital experience, right? Sound like my grandmother. So how do you create personality in the user interface so that I can identify with the computer as another human like me and like it more, or have a more of an affinity to it? Again, I'm talking about color, shape, and meaning. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just the work that I did. There's a ton more to do out there. Now, this is 2004. and those are the actual color skins. So I'm very sorry, I apologize. It was a different world in 2004. So, first of all, in the work that I did, we found that with the grey skin, there was significance with cooperation and cautiousness. So both agreeableness and conscientiousness preferred grey skins, effectively, okay? But it was negatively correlated with anger. Okay, so angry people don't like or tend not to choose grey. Morality was an agreeable trait linked with purple. Excitement seeking was negatively correlated with extroversion. On the meaning stuff, and again, I don't know if I've got time to go into it now. Remember, this is 2004, and I'm trying to give a skin a personality. That's not easy, right? I've got to make it something that represents a trait that somebody can match. So, briefly speaking, this skin, you probably can't see that. That's a guy in a balaclava holding a gun. That's definitely not agreeable. How did I get to that? That's not just me going, I think that's what that means to me. I went through several layers of jury. I got lots of people, 12 to 15 people in each jury, and repeat those juries, getting them to rate the personality of all these skins. Okay, running a psychometric on those. This one here is somebody meditating on a rock. That's a conscientious. This is party people being very extrovert. This is a guy screaming on a phone. He's being neurotic and not very emotionally stable. And this is the not neurotic. This is the emotionally stable. This is people kind of meditating on the beach. Up here is agreeable, joined hands. And this here is a non-conscientious. This is a messy room. This is not what I decided. This is what the jury, the multiple levels of jury did. Now, this gets really interesting. So, for conscientiousness, there was strong similarity attraction. If you're conscientious, you tend to choose a conscientious skin. And in that one in particular was this guy meditating on a rock, being very kind of zen. And if you're a zen kind of person, then you choose a zen kind of a personality. Similarly, if you are an extrovert, you choose other extroverts like you. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, and this was not expected at all, I was testing specifically for similarity attraction. Actually, if you think about it, if you're neurotic, you're not emotionally stable, you're not going to choose another neurotic skin, right? So there is a dissimilarity attraction going on, a kind of an aspiration thing going on. Likewise, we saw for not conscientious people, the messy room, there is a dissimilarity. You don't choose not conscientious stuff. It's much more aspirational. So there's dissimilarity and similarity attraction going on here. So in summary, you can use similarity attraction and dissimilarity attraction to identify your audience by their behavior, i.e. by their reactions, right? It's a nice way to do that. Must also consider that people will treat your experience like a computer, believe it or not. But this is the real issue. When is it similarity and when is it dissimilarity? When is it aspirational, when is it not? And that's for you guys to determine. So what I want to leave you with is some takeaways, because I actually want to leave you with some practical stuff that you guys can do on your projects tomorrow, rather than some of this stuff which is way too academic and it's just way too early. It will be coming, it might be another 10 years, but you need stuff that you can do today. So that's what I want to give you now. So I put user researcher, but that could be the full service practitioner if you are of that ilk, with a web analyst, and please excuse the gender designations, they are arbitrary. So the dream team, user research and web analyst, qual and quant, perfect harmony. The pair of you segment. Things like Adobe Experience Manager, whatever it is that you're using, can help you create the segments by identifying behaviors or by segmenting. And that's a joint activity. But what you as the researcher can do is through your research activities, you're going to have ideas, you're going to have hypotheses of stuff. In your discovery or in the lab or in the field, wherever it is, you're going to get these ideas. It might well be that you haven't got the time, the materials, the budget, or the access to people to do the study that you need to in the numbers large enough you need to. And this is where your compadre, the web analyst, comes in through their A/B multivariate testing, through the web analysis stuff. So it's very easy to say, I think that our audience is, our males are sports fans and are extroverts, and then therefore I can show male sports images. And you might get that right or wrong. It's a hypothesis. Use the web analytics and all that testing to do that. And it might be simple A/B, it might be multivariate, where you're actually working out all those different variables to work out where's that sweet spot. This sort of model is something that if you're not doing it already, you just should do it. It's just so easy to. There's too much in our industry and digital of being right and wrong, and there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, let me go find out. And that's where I come from. I don't have all the answers, but I have the methods to get the answers, and this is the method to get all the answers. So don't be afraid, have the hypotheses and get the evidence. So takeaways. Learn about your audience, generate those hypotheses. Experiment with ways to identify segments in the audience, because that's going to be a function of Adobe Experience Manager or whatever tool you are using to be able to basically say, when this figure gets to a certain amount, put them in this pile, okay? And then serve them this content. That makes some sense. And then experiment to find out which design elements the segment responds to. Now, you're probably doing the design element experimentation now through basic multivariate testing, but you're maybe not doing it in response to segments. And so finding how segments respond to your designs is one way how you learn about the segment itself. You see what I mean? It's a bit like, it's guesswork, frankly, but it's educated guessing. So, finally, one quick promo. If you are a psychology-driven individual, if you're interested in psychology, we have started a community and a YouTube channel called UX Psychology. The idea is that we're bringing more science into user research because, frankly, I can't stand market research. So we've got the British Psychological Society. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
We'll take some questions for Nick.
Can I ask, so if personalisation is out there, in my head you could either try and figure out yourself what someone is and you personalise it for them, which is getting off them, or you could like design an option, a whole load of different options and let them personalise it for themselves.
Yeah.
I wanted your thoughts.
Yeah. So I guess 5 or 6 years ago there was a big, maybe longer, 10 years ago, it was about a debate about customization versus personalization. And it's still, I don't know, I don't think it's been bottomed out. It's not easy to define. I used to think of things like that. If I'm giving you a thing, a generic thing, and allowing you to personalize it, that's customization. So that's like saying I have a generic car and I'm going to put a stripe on it and do all that stuff to it. That's customization. Whereas personalization is more about adapting the experience for the user. It's almost like you get in the car and it knows that you are female, that you're certain length, that you sit on the left or the right. I don't know, all those things. There are different levels of personalization. You get, so you get like the recommender stuff that you get, like at Amazon and stuff. That is personalization, but it's not the sort of personalization that I'm talking about. So I'm talking about personalizing tone of voice, content, all of that, way beyond that. So an example might be, you go to Sky Sports or to Virgin Media or, I don't know, a brand. When you log into My Virgin Media or My Sky, one of those things, they're trying to personalize it at that point because they know stuff about you, and that's a good thing to do. I'm trying to take it, well, this piece of work is taking it much further than that. Because, like I said, the artificial intelligence worlds and all of these things, they're going to need personality. I mean, think about TomTom. Or other navigational devices, the tone of voice, the way that it sounds, let alone the attitude and how it talks to you and when it talks to you and all of that stuff. So that's this is very early work and it's still quite early. We have to have the answers to this stuff at some point, or we have to have the research methods to find out those answers. Because I've no doubt that every single person in this room is going to be asked to personalize on the project that you're on at some point in the next few years. It's not an easy ask. It really isn't. So it's really a case of what can you learn about your users, what's ethical, and then how do you actually execute it on page. Is that all right?
Yeah. Great, guys.
Thank you.
We've got time for 2 more questions. I have this gentleman here and you over there. So if you'd like to ask your question.
Thanks. Hi there. To what extent do you allow users to know that an experience has been personalised? there any like research that shows kind of, is it good to let users know that something's been personalised for them, or is it not so good?
So,
All I can tell you is that when I've designed, they always talk about people's names being the sweetest voice that you can ever hear, right? And so you'll always, at least it's an indication of a personalised experience when you say, "Hi, Dave, this is for you," or that kind of a thing. That's much more overt, explicit level of personalisation. I hadn't really thought until we was trying to answer that other question earlier about kind of covert personalisation, where you're personalising and they're not necessarily aware of it. That's going on all the time, and marketing people are adept at that kind of dark art. Quite simply, I don't know. All I'm trying to get is the overt side of things. There's so many privacy issues right now that being ethically clean or appropriate is the only way forward right now. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? If we start doing dark or covert personalization, that's a road I don't want to go down or discuss, or you know what I'm saying? Because it's going to taint the waters of personalization, and it's already really messy with the privacy issues. Yeah, sorry. Anyone else?
Yeah, it sounds like it worked really well for like personal devices or like logged in experiences, but interested to see how you see personalisation working, if it can, across devices that multiple people are using, whether that's televisions or computers, that kind of thing, whether it can be applied to devices.
I mean, the idea that your personal assistant travels with you into your car or in your home, because that personal assistant is a form of personalised user interface anyway. Or like I said, the personal portable user interface, the PPUI, that really should be a thing. So, like I said, if your definition of your skin or whatever your experience is held in the cloud, you should be able to access that ubiquitously, literally everywhere you go, on whatever device it is. Or you could get your new contract phone, and as part of the login, right now you put your Wi-Fi details in, you just put your cloud details in, and it's going to pull it down. It's almost like, in web terms, we've got robots.txt, those sorts of things. There'll be like a ocean.txt, right? A file that's sitting there in the cloud that just references it. Yeah, I think that's almost certainly the way it's going to go. I just don't think it's going to happen anytime in the next sort of 5 years.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
Thanks.
listen, thank you very much, and really a big round of applause
Thank
for
you.
Nick Ryan.